Hey guys, Jennifer from Scrapping Under the Influence. Today we are going to be doing the tutorial for this little album right here. It doesn't really have a name. I used the Bella Boulevard Let's Go on an Adventure paper that is brand new from them. But we are going to do this album a second time with all of its fun little flaps and things and pockets and pages and you know how this goes. And we're going to use some different paper on it. And I'm actually going to do a tutorial on this because I actually put this together at a retreat. So, yeah, so let's get going. So to start, to build our base of our album, you're going to need chipboard. 2 pieces, 6.5 by 6.5. 1 piece for the spine, 6.5 by 1 3/4. Okay. And then to wrap it with, I've got 2 pieces of 8.5 of black cardstock, 8.5 by 12. I'm trying to run through the last of my Michael's 65-pound cardstock, so just because I found better alternatives other places, namely Country Craft Creations. Their black artisan cardstock is fabulous, and this was done with their craft artisan cardstock, and I honestly cannot say enough good things about it. It's just amazing. So I'm just trying to use the last of my Michael's cardstock. So what I've done is I've actually done a score line, 1 inch from the top and 1 inch from the bottom on both pieces, for 2 reasons. One, this is going to help us when we line this up and attach these 2 together to create a big enough piece to cover our chipboard. And then 2, it helps when we're lining up the chipboard to be able to line that up against that score line on the bottom edge and get them good and straight. So I'm actually going to have to turn this around. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, I'm going to pull the backing on that off just a little bit and get it folded down out of the way. And I'm just going to line this up on the bottom, get that score line lined up, get it right to the edge of my tape, and I'm going to come up here and press it down up here where I pulled that backing away. And then I am just going to carefully pull the backing off of that paper, and I actually had it backing tear just a tiny bit, which happens occasionally. So let's get that out of there. There we go. Okay. So we've got that down. Next thing we're going to do is put down our chipboard pieces. I've already gone ahead and gotten tape on here. So I got 1.5 wide and 2.5 inch wide rolls of score tape at the Let's Create Expo here in Salt Lake over the weekend, and it's kind of cool because rather than running a whole bunch of little strips of tape, I've got one big one. Oops, let's not do that. That would be bad. Okay, so we're just going to line this up, kind of center it, because we've got a seam here, and there will be a seam, of course, on the opposite side there. So, you know we used 1/2 inch score tape to hook these 2 together, so just kind of, I don't know, eyeball it, center it up there, get it lined up with this bottom score line, and get it pushed down. And we're going to do our sides here. So I've got my 1/2 inch score tape, and then I've got, I'm not sure who makes it, Couture, I can't even say it, Couture Creations. And I bought this, I actually bought a second roll of this at the expo last weekend. Let me grab it because it's not unwrapped. So Couture Creations die cut and bond adhesive. It's, how much is on here? 27 yards of this. It's about a little over 4.5 inches wide. I actually did use it on the other album because I had bought a roll of it from the visiting store at the Doodle by Retreat Island Creative Escape, I think is the name of it. They're in San Diego, or somewhere, not San Diego, somewhere around San Jose. And I bought a roll of it from them at the Doodlebug retreat. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. This is nice. Not quite as sticky as the, that's close, as the score tape, but it's pretty dang close. And actually, let me back up. So I've got my spine down. What I have been doing is running either a 1/4 inch piece of tape in here or a 3/8 inch piece of score tape on either side of that spine to guarantee I'm getting enough space so that it does not crack when you bend it. It's entirely up to you. If you want to just measure it and mark it, you can do that. If you want to eyeball it, that's fine. And the only reason I've been doing this is I had an album when I was working on that that Flutter album I did, the Graphic 45 Flutter album that I did here a couple weeks ago. I had my spine crack for the first time in, I can't even tell you how long. And it was just that my gussets were not quite wide enough. And that was entirely just, that was my fault for not really paying attention. So just to kind of, you know, give myself a reference point, you know, I can leave this just slightly over from that and make sure that I've got enough space there, you know, to, for this to bend without cracking. So we're just going to line this up again with that bottom score line, drop it into place, push it down. And we're going to do the exact same thing. That's not the one I want. I want the one that's not sharp and I'm not going to cut my hand open with. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on this side. All right, flip that over, take my bone folder and just burnish this, make sure we've got this good and adhered down. And then I'm actually going to grab my small paper trimmer and I'm just going to put this in here. I'm going to line up that chipboard edge as close to the 1 inch as I can get it and just cut this off so that we've got 1 inch all the way around. Okay, so now I can find a piece of chipboard here. All right, we're gonna get this marked so we can miter our corners. And all I'm doing is taking a piece of chipboard, bumping it up against that outside corner, getting it till it looks even, and I'm just drawing a line. Let's turn it around so I can see what the heck I'm doing here. Okay, so now let's get the 1/2 inch score tape out, and really we can go in here and actually pull those up too while we can get to them. Maybe. Not having good luck with the score tape today, apparently. All right, so take our 1/2 inch score tape. I'm actually going to run it right over that gusset. It's not going to matter. Cut on the end. Do the same thing up here. And then we're also going to run it around the outside here. We just need to go till we've gotten that line, that pencil line we drew covered. You don't need to go too far over it so that we are not wasting nearly as much tape as we might otherwise. And it's up to you. I mean, if you don't care, you want to run your tape all the way to the ends. I know I do that sometimes when I'm in a hurry and I don't necessarily want to, you know, get it that exact. It really is entirely up to you. So now then, as soon as I figure out where my scissors went. Okay, now we're going to miter our corners. We're just going to cut just on the side of that score line. I'm sorry, not score line, pencil line. Actually, let's go just a tiny bit more. There we go. And then not do it. Good heavens. I am just not in this today, I swear. Okay. All right, so we're gonna go just slightly next to that pencil mark, not right on top of it. There we go. All right. So now, of course, you're gonna train those longer flaps. And that's the other reason I've started doing that score line. One, to help line up my chipboard pieces on the inside so that it's even. And two, because when we go to do that initial bend, it's scored. So it's going to bend much easier and much more cleanly than it might otherwise. So let's go around here. Let's get all of our tape backing off. Maybe, kind of, sort of. There we go. All right. So now what I'm going to do, just to give this a little bit of extra stability, I'm going to run a bead of glue right down along that little space there where this chipboard is going to fold over. I'll start in the middle, work our way out. We're going to do the same thing on this side. Okay, so we can work this down in here just a little bit to kind of help us get ready to push these corners in. So you're just going to kind of come in. Actually, I think I want to use that end. You're just going to come in here, kind of push that corner in. See how I've done that? Do the same thing over here. Just going to come in on the edge of that chipboard and you're going to kind of push that corner down. Okay, we're going to run the glue again. Maybe, sort of. Doesn't want to run for me today. Bend that, push it over, and then you've got perfect corners on the edge of your album. And I'm sure if you've done this before, you all already know this. I actually need to trim that one ever so slightly. You've done this before, and this is not new information. This is something that it took me a little while to get the hang of. A lot of times, honestly, I forget to do it. And if you do, that's fine. But it does give you, your corners a nicer overall look. All right, so that kind of worked in there. Okay, now we need a gusset hider. We are going to make that, let's see here, 6 1/4 by, what is this? 4 3/4 will work. You could go a little bit bigger if you wanted to. If you wanted to put something over this entire thing, you absolutely could. I'm not going to do that. Okay. So for this, I'm actually going to get out this big tape roll again. And we're just going to kind of, where is a knife? There we go. Actually, no. We're going to do it this way. We are going to, we're going to get very stuck to the tape is what we're going to do. No, well, it helps if you only have one piece of cardstock there instead of 2. Okay, so we're going to get this right here on the end. We're going to lay it down. We're going to take the sharp knife. We're going to trim that off. Got it mostly straight, a little bit crooked. That's fine. It's easily fixed. So it has excess adhesive. That's fine. All right, there we go. Okay. It's trying to stick to me. Okay. Put it on the shirt, then it won't matter. Okay. So we're going to take my little scraper tool. I'm just going to burnish that down. Get the backing off of here. And then on here, I'm actually just going to run some glue. Oh, what is this? Okay. All right. So we're just going to center this on here. And push it down. All right. Now then, we're going to take our bone folder. We're going to work that down in there. And because we've got the tape that we put in there to help measure our gusset here, that's actually going to grab onto that gusset hider. And it's going to give you a nice spine. So there we go. Kind of bend this a little bit back and forth, get it trained, and there we go. There is our base. I'm going to set that aside. We're going to talk about the hinge. So for the hinge, you need a piece 5 1/8 wide, 6 1/4 high. Okay, with the 5 1/8 side along the top, you're going to score at 1/2 inch. Oh, sorry, I have to look at my notes because the actual measurements are not on here. Basically, you're going to go 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/8, 1/2 inch, 1/2 inch. So it ends up being 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1 3/8, 1 7/8, 2 3/8, 2 3/4, 1 1/4, 3 1/4. Okay, 2 3/4, 3 1/4, 3 3/4, 4 1/8, 4 5/8, and that should leave you with a 1/2 inch on the end. Okay, you're going to add your tape, and we're going to start building our hinges. Okay, so we're going to bend this over, and out we go. We're going to do it again on the next one. it at that score line, and down we go. And then we can bend that back, and there's our first 2 hinges. Okay. Okay. So same thing again, we're going to fold that over and then back. And then final one, and over and over and over and over and over and over. No, not really. All right, so here is our hinge. As you can see, there are no wings. There's no extra flaps. There's nothing else going on here except our 4 hinges and our 3 gussets. My last couple of books I've done, I actually have done it this way, where I have left this out until the very end. We are going to go ahead and put adhesive on the back side of this just so that it's ready to go. Okay, so putting tape on my spine in preparation to start building pages and get the base of this album done. So I've got 1/2 inch hinges. I'm actually going to use 1/4 inch score tape. The reason for this is I can center that score tape on that hinge and give myself a visual place as far where to stop my page as I'm putting it down onto that hinge. Okay. So I'm going to do that on both sides on all of these. And that way I'm not having too much tape that comes down. I don't have too much tape going up where it's going to, you know, be out above the top of that hinge so that when the page is in there and the insert's in there, the insert is catching. I don't have it going too far below where, you know, once we get the page positioned on there, we may have adhesive hanging out that's going to collect dust. And it should hold with no problem. We're not doing any super heavy embellishments. If I was doing heavier embellishments and heavier pages, in that instance, I probably would go to a 5/8 inch hinge so that I had that extra height to play with, so that I could use, you know, wider tape to put that hinge on there. Okay. And then the other thing to ensure that our pages go on at the height we want them, we're going to just ever so slightly miter the corners on our hinge so that when that page slips down on there, it's only going to go as far as where we've cut that in. Because our spine is 6 1/4 inches high, our pages are 6 1/4 inches high. We're going to do this on all of these, on both sides, starting from that tape line up and in. And there we go. So here's our hinge. I actually do need to get adhesive on the back of this. I did not do that before now. I'm trying to find my 1/2 inch. So I'm actually going to use 1/2 inch tape on the back of my hinge. Okay, so let's start cutting some pages here. and some inserts and some flaps and, you know, so on and so forth. So for the page bases, you're going to need 4 each of 6 1/4 by 7 1/4, and you're going to score those at 1/2 inch on each end. Okay, I've got 3 here, and then for the top piece you need 6 1/4, and I actually did them by 6 1/16, so that they're just that hair smaller, so that when we put them together, actually I think that's 6 1/16 by 6 1/16, honestly. So they're just that hair smaller, so when we put these pages together, when we have this scored piece folded over, we actually assemble these, you don't have anything sticking out on the sides or that doesn't, you know, fit flush on these pages. So I've got 3 of them right there. So let's cut our last set of those. So 6 1/4, and I'm actually just going to set all of these scraps aside because we'll end up using a lot of these for some of the flaps and things later on. Okay, so there's that one, and then we need 6 1/16. I'm sorry, not 1/16. What did I do here? 3/16. That's what I'm trying to do. 6 3/16, not 1/16. That's going to be way too small. Okay. All right. So these are going to be our page base. So I'm just going to write on here page base, and I'm going to set those aside. So those are going to be one of the last things that we're going to deal with. Okay, we need 4 inserts. The inserts are 6 by 6. So we are just going to take a sheet of 12 by 12 and we're just going to cut it into 4 squares. Here, inserts, and I'm actually going to take a paper clip. I'm going to clip those together and set them aside. All right, so inside cover, we need 7 1/4 wide. So I'm taking one of my scraps. I go 7 1/4. And then we need a 4 1/2, a 3 1/2, and a 2 1/2. Okay, this is going to be our stacked pocket. So there's the 4 1/2. Go 7 1/4 again. And we're going to go 3 1/2. And then this one should be, I've lost my ruler again. This one should be, yep, 2 1/4. Not quite big enough, but that's okay. Somewhere I have my paper. Okay. There we go. 7 1/4 by 2 1/2. Okay. These are going to get scored in a minute, but for now, we're going to just clip them together. Say front cover and set it to the side because we do have a number of them that we're going to have to come back and score here in a minute. So if I can get a hold of anything here, I'll do the same thing with the page bases. I'm actually going to clip all those together because I'm really good at picking up something that I've cut for something else thinking it's a scrap and it's not. All right, so our first page has, oh, I'm sorry, no, there's actually a flap in that front page. So we're going to take another piece here. We're going to go 6 3/4 by 6 1/4. This is actually what those pockets are going to go on. So put that aside. All right, let's try this again. All right, so front page, 5 3/4 by 5 1/4. So this one is 5 1/4 wide. So we're going to cut this scrap to 5 3/4. Okay, and we need to do those we need 4 of those. Okay, so there's 2. I'll go 5 1/4 again. 5 3/4. 5 3/4. All right, these are all going to get scored. So we're going to put these aside. We're going to go page 1, front. Add those to the pile. Okay, the back side of page 1 is, we have one flap that is 6 3/4, which is what we have left here, by 6 1/4. All right, that's the piece that is left is going to be 5 3/4. And we just need to cut this down to 6 1/2. And there's our 2 flaps for the back side of page 2. I'm sorry, page 1. Page 1 back. So page 1 back. Add them to the pile to be scored. Okay. Front of the second page is going to be a side pocket, side loading pocket. And it does not look like I have a scrap right here, but I do have one over here. Okay, so 7 1/4 by 3 inches. Okay. Page 2 front. Okay, page 2 back. We need one at 5 1/2 by 11. Okay. And that one is going to get scored at 5 1/2. We're going to do page 2 back. All right, page 3 front. Find another one of these scraps from over here. And the reason these scraps are sitting on the other side is because I did those page bases separately. So this one, we're going to go 7 1/4. 4 1/4. Okay. And then 4 3/4, which is what we should be really close to. Where am I? Aha, 4 3/4 by 4 1/4. All right. And this is going to be page 2 back. No, not page 2. Page 3 front. I'm sorry. I'm looking at my notes and it's just not making sense. Okay, so page 3 front. Page 3 back is just a 6x6 photo mat. Okay, so page 4, and this is where it's gonna get tricky. So we need a base piece 6x6. I don't think this is 6 wide, is it? It's not. Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so we're gonna cut a piece 6 by 6. That's going to be our base. This is our little diagonal fold flaps that are on the front of page 6. Okay. And then we're going to do 6 5/8, so just past the 6.5 mark. By 6. Okay, so there's 2. Sorry, the paper trimmer is new. I'm still getting used to it. It's a little bit different than my Fiskars, obviously. Okay. Set those aside. We're going to say page 4 front. Set those aside. And page 4 back just has a small flap that is 5 3/4 by 4 3/4. Okay, so this is going to be back. All right, and then the back cover has a couple more flaps. And I don't know if we're going to need a couple more sheets here. So I'm going to go 6 1/4 by 6 3/4. And then actually I'll remove the rest of these scraps because we don't need the rest of these right now. And then 6 5/8 by 6 1/8. So what have we got here? Nope, not quite. All right. All right, so then we've got 6 5/8 by 6 1/8. so put those together. All right, so back cover. Okay, so put that aside. I'm actually going to move the paper trimmer. Bring my mat back in and grab soap. All right. As you all probably know by now, I cannot use the scoreboard with it up and down. I have to use it from the side because I'm weird. So let's go back to our page bases. Okay. So we have the smaller ones that are not being scored, and then we've got the bigger piece that we need scored at the end. So with the 7 1/4 side along the top, we're going to score it 1/2 inch, turn it all the way around, and 1/2 inch. Okay, those are all ready for tape. Let's put that down. Okay, so this is our front cover. So sorry, bear with me, I'm trying to find my note. Okay, so we want the 6 3/4 side at the top, so 6 1/4 running down this side. No, that's wrong. Want the 6 1/4 side at the top, 6 3/4 running down the side. You're going to score this at 1/2 inch. Okay, so this is going to be our, did I just do that wrong? I did do that wrong. Good Lord, I'm losing my mind. Okay. Yes, 6 3/4 at the top. I'm losing my mind. Scored at 1/2 inch. It's fine. It will all be good. Okay, so our pockets, you're going to put the 6 1/4 at the top, score 1/2 inch on each side. Okay. All right. I'm going to put all these back together and clip them together again. Because really, once we mat this, you're not going to see the extra score line, thankfully. Okay, so first page, the front, first page. You're going to score all of these at 1/2 inch with the 5 3/4 inch side at the top. Score them on 1/2 inch. Okay. Those are scored. We can put those all back together. Okay. The back side of the first page. We need the 6 3/4 inch side at the top. Score this at 1/2 inch. And with this one, we want the 6 1/2 inch side at the top, I think. Now we're going to score that one at 1/2 inch. Okay. Okay, set those aside. Page 2 just has the the back side, I'm sorry, the front of page 2 just has the little pocket on there. So 7 1/4 inch side at the top, score it at 1/2 inch on each side. The back of page 2 has a big flap. So this thing is 11 inches. So we're going to score this in the middle at 5 1/2. Okay. Third page front. are doing this one. Oh, we missed cutting some stuff here. This is the waterfall. That's what's throwing me off. Okay, so 7 1/4 at the top. I'm gonna score this at 1/2 inch on each side. This is the waterfall, so you're gonna put your 4 3/4 at the top, score it 1/2 inch, and we need to cut 3 more of that size. So let me do that really quickly, and I'll be right back. Okay, so made a mistake there. We should have had 4 pieces that were 4 3/4 by 4 1/4. These are all going to get scored at 1/2 inch with the 4 3/4 side at the top. And this is our little waterfall on the front of page 3. Apologize for that. My notes apparently, I didn't make that clear to myself that that's what I was trying to do there. That makes a lot more sense why I had this one like weird little 4 by 4 piece. Okay. So the back side of the 3rd page is just a mat. Okay, so I'm actually going to skip the diagonal one for just a second. We're going to do these other couple of pages. Okay, so the 4th page on the back has a small flap. You're going to put the 4 1/4 inch side, 4 3/4 inch at the top and score. Get the right side of my bone folder. Sorry, my scoring. Yeah, you know what I mean. Score that at 1/2 inch. The back cover, we need the 6 3/4 inch side at the top. Score it 1/2 inch. And then the, what have I done here? Six and 5/8. Oh, that's what I did. Okay, that's right. 6 5/8 at the top, 6 3/4 at the top. Score both of those at 1/2 inch. All right, so this is where this gets a little funky. All right, so we have all these little diagonal pieces that we're going to do. Okay, we have our 6 by 6 base piece. We're going to set that one aside. It does not need scored. All of these, the first score that you're going to do, you're going to get the 6 5/8 side at the top. You're going to score it at 1/2 inch, and then again at 5/8 inch. So you're going to have this little 1/8 inch gusset right there. Okay, do that on all 4 of these. So 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch, 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch. One more time. 1/2 inch, 5/8 inch. Now, we need to score these diagonally. Okay? A couple ways you can do this. You can do it on your scoreboard if you're comfortable doing it that way, that you're going to put one corner up in one of the holes and make sure it's lined up straight down that one, which this one is not. Or, and this is actually easier, which I have a different trimmer that I took to, that I bought to take like to crops and to travel with rather than taking this one and the scoreboard. And it is over in my rolling tote, and I don't know that I necessarily want to go get it. But it's the We Are Memory Keepers, and it has both the trimmer and the scoreboard in one tool. I think it's great for travel. It is not one I want to use every single day, just because it's a little weird to try to measure and cut where you've got all these like little scoring channels. I don't know how else to explain it. It's very odd. But what we can do, and just so we don't do anything in error, we're going to take the cutting blade out of this. So what we can do is we can line this up in here so that we get it lined up where it needs to score. So then we would take our stylus, and we're going to use that channel that this goes in to score, okay? So what you're lining up is from this, the bottom score line, okay, to the opposite corner. All right, now we have tape on all of our edges. We've mitered our corners where they need it, and we can start assembling. So I'm actually trying to find, there we go. Okay, so, and I also added tape to our hinge because we hadn't done that yet. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to do the back, front and back inside cover. So we're actually going to start with the back inside cover because this is actually the simplest one. We're going to get everything folded on our score lines. Apparently I didn't miter these. And I've lost my scissors. There they are. Okay, so let me miter those really quick. I thought I did. Alright, so let me grab this just because I really don't remember which one went on top. Okay. Alright, so the flap that is 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 to the score line is going to be our top mat. Our inside mat we're actually going to put down first. So pull the backing off of there, and since we don't actually even have anything in here yet, I can actually start it like this. I'm going to run this all the way up to the very top edge of the book. And I just did that wrong, but that's okay. Okay, so this one's going to flip down instead of up. That's fine. It does not matter. We're going to get this one set up. The backing off of there. And this one, we're just going to center it on here. We're going to make sure that we've got about 1/8 of an inch on each side there. I'm going to put that one down and burnish that one down. So I'm going to have it close that way and then that way. So that piece is done. For our front inside cover, this piece is going to go here like this. It will actually flip up like that. The pockets are going to go on top of it. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to start with the pockets onto the flap itself. The reason we're going to do it that way is because that way we can get them even. So for the pockets, on one side you're going to have the tape on your two ends that are going to get folded over, and on the back side you're going to do a 1/4 inch score tape at the bottom, and that's going to form our pocket. So to actually do the pocket itself, we're going to take that backing off the 1/4 inch score tape, and we're going to fold these two flaps in on the side, two tabs in on the side. So there's our pocket. It will go down like this, so it's open at the top. Okay. Do the same thing with this one, so it's ready to go. All right, we're going to start and make sure our tab for our flap is at the top. We're going to start with the tallest pocket. I'm going to undo just a corner and fold that out on the side adhesive, okay? And then I'm going to line this up so it's flush with the bottom and the sides. Get that pushed down, and then we're just very carefully pull that out from the side. And this keeps our pocket from moving as we're actually putting it down. We're going to do the same thing with the next one and then with the small one as well. So you're just going to pull this out just a tiny bit. This is just going to be to give yourself time. We're going to do the exact same thing. It's going to go all the way flush with the bottom. Push it down there, push that side down. And there we go. And one more time. Since this one's so small, I'm actually not gonna worry too much about that getting on there crooked because it's tiny enough, it'll be fine. Okay, so then if you want, you can take your bone folder and kind of go in here and make sure those are good and pushed down. I don't think it's going to be an issue. Okay, so now for our pocket, or I'm sorry, for our flap that those pockets sit on, we're going to do the same thing again. We're just going to loosen up one end. Okay, so it's going to flip up this way. So I'm going to come over here and hold that flap down, and I'm just going to line this up. And we should have about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Oops, see, and that's why we do that, because I pushed on it and it moved. All right, so we got our side down, all the way across, and there we go. So there's our front and back and side covers. We can set this aside while we start working on the pages. So from your little stack of page pieces, you're going to take one that has these the tape on the flaps, and you're going to take one that does not. Okay, so what we're going to do is make sure that everything lines up. And then we're going to do that same thing again on one side only. Okay, fold that down. You're going to line this up on here, get it right up to the edge, right up to the top. And remember, these are like 1/16 of an inch smaller, so there is going to be a slight difference in the way they line up, but that's so that you don't have anything overhanging or overlapping when this actually goes down for good. So we're going to go ahead and do this with all 3 of these. I'm sorry, all 4 of these, just so that they are ready to go as we start building all the other little pieces and parts here. Okay. So same thing. Just gonna line it up. Put it down on that corner and peel that tape out. would be helpful if we folded this over first, wouldn't it? It's been a long day. Don't know why. My son's on spring break. Actually, that's probably why it's been a long day. My son is on spring break. He is driving me insane. And here we are. Right. All right, so now we've got our page bases mostly put together. We won't close these up until we actually attach them to the spine. So these are as done as they're going to be for right now. So we're going to take one of these. We're going to take page 1 front. Okay, so what I did here is I actually, and you could do this a couple of ways. So on the original book, I centered these flaps, okay? All right. And we actually do have a magnet under here, so we'll add a magnet to this as well. But you don't have to center these. You can offset them. I've done that actually on another album. So you end up with them kind of, let's see here. Oh, for crying out loud. Okay. So then you kind of end up with this look right here. So you see a bit of every single one of the papers that you actually mat this with. Doing it this way, you don't see all of it. You only see just, well, you do kind of still see all of it. So really, it's entirely up to you how you want to do this. I think I'm actually going to offset these this time since I did them, I centered them on the last book. So all we're doing is same thing again. And these really, it doesn't necessarily matter what order they go on in, because in the end, you know, it's really just how you want to fold them down. So we're putting this all the way to the edge on that page base. And then pulling that out, okay? And I'm going to do the same thing again. Mean to pull that all the way off, but that's okay. Okay. And again. And this is why we haven't actually attached the page bases to the spine or put the spine in the book, because leaving it loose like this gives us the ability to kind of move it around the way we want to. If you wanted to put these in here in a different order, you absolutely could. If you wanted to, you know, it gives you some different options. And that one actually should have been up in that corner, but that's okay, because these two will be the same and then these will be offset, and that will be fine. Really, you can do this however you want to do them on the page. If you wanted to, which this actually would be kind of cool, if you wanted to center them and get them all in so that when they're folded together, they all just like stack up so you don't see that there's 4 of them there, that would actually be really cute. Okay. All right. So here's our first one. And it's it's actually going to end up sitting like this probably, because once again, this just depends on how that we decide to actually close this up. So, no, that's not sitting right, is it? It is not. We're going to fix this, actually. Maybe. Except I don't see my... Oh, there it is. My undo. All right. That stuff smells terrible, but it works so well. Just amazes me. Okay, give that just a second to dry. Which it doesn't really dry so much as it just like evaporates. It's just weird. Okay. So we're going to try this again, only we're going to try it on the end it was supposed to go on in the first place. All right, there we go. So then this is going to fold up the way it's supposed to. When you do it this way, where we're not actually putting the pages on or finishing the pages off until we get them in the book, one thing you do want to keep in mind and kind of be aware of is where your opening is. So you're sliding this on your hinge, okay? So this is sliding on the hinge from this side, okay? So when we turn it over to do the other side, there it is, you want to make sure that it's right side up. Okay, so on this one, whoops, didn't mean to do that. We're going to put this one, so it's going to open this way, and then the flap that's going on the top of this flap is going to open up, okay? So, we're going to pull that off. We're going to line this up with the very, very edge. Push it down. And we're going to take this one. I'm not going to pull that all the way off yet because I'm going to turn it upside down so I can see what I'm doing. I want to center this. And I did make that too big, didn't I? Let's see if we can fix it in just a minute here. I want to center this on here. Okay. And this actually is slightly too long, so I'm gonna actually open it up in here, stick it in here, and just trim off like an eighth of an inch. Okay, so page 1 is done. So we can actually attach this to our hinge. So once again, you want to make sure as you go to do this that you're putting it on right side up. So this, we want it to flip up and out to the side. This is our front, so we're going to start on this front hinge here. We're going to open this up this way. We're going to do that. Okay, so since this is a 1/2 inch hinge and I've used 3/8 inch score tape, we have 2 things that are going to help us get this lined up. Just make sure I'm lining this up right. So we're going to put this, and I actually should not have pulled this all the way off. I did not mean to do that. Okay. We're going to do the same thing with this that we've been doing with all of these other pages. Okay. We're going to line this up so that we've got our score mark over there, our page over here, and we're leaving that gap at the bottom. I'm actually going to fold that stuff out of the way so I can see for sure that I'm getting this in the right place. Okay, so we've got that there. Of course, I am on the wrong, I folded it to the wrong side, but that's okay because and there we go. Okay, so we've got that there. Did I just totally put something wrong? No, okay. Sorry, every time the first one I always get myself completely confused. So, okay, we're attached on one side. Now we need to be attached on the other. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna pull that off. All we have to do here is just fold this over. Hold it so I can see it. And there we go. And then we'll attach that down in a minute. All right, so there we go. Okay. So we are ready to start assembling our first page. And actually, we're going to start on the back of the first page. So this didn't get mitered. Okay, let me just miter these really quick. Okay. So on the back of the first page, we're going to have one flap that opens this way and one on top of it that opens up. So we're just going to pull part of that, the backing on the tape back, and then we're going to line this up. We want this completely flush with the top of the page. Okay. And then there we go. Okay. So that now flips open. And this other one is going to go on top. And we're just going to center this one on here, like so. So it opens this way, or it opens this way. All right. So on the front, we have these 4 little flaps. Now, on the original album, I had them centered. So I had 2 like this, and then I had the other 2 going like this. We can offset these. We can should actually be like this. You can offset them like that. We can actually push them all into the middle so that you just have this like little stack of flaps in the middle, and I kind of like that actually. But if we're doing that, then we really need to mat this before we put these down. So let's not do it that way. I have to remember that for something else. I think I'm going to do these just like I did them on the first album. So what I did is I took my Tim Holtz ruler. I know we can't see it under that. Hold on just 1 second. Okay. Just so you can see what I'm doing here. So Tim Holtz ruler, take the actual page itself, and we're just going to get that centered, get the ruler centered with the page. Okay. So basically from that 0 point, you're going to have 3 1/8 and 3 1/8. So this is 4 1/4. So you need it between the 2 1/4. I'm sorry, 2 1/8. This is 4 1/4. So this would be 2 1/8 and 2 1/8. I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to do the same thing for this side. Okay, because when I get one of them on one side, I can use it to line up the one that goes directly across. So this is just going up to the very edge between the 2 little marks I made for the width. Okay. And for this one, which I actually shouldn't have pulled that back in all the way off, but that's okay. We're just going to get this once again all the way to the edge. But we're also going to line it up here, flush with that side. Okay? And then just repeat it for the other 2 flaps. You're going to start with the one here where we made the marks. And then we're going to turn it around. And do the same thing on this side, only this time we're going to line it up on top of the other flap. Okay, there you go. Okay, so now, how do we attach this page to this spine? Okay, first things first, you want to make sure that the spine, when you're holding the spine, you're holding it like it's going to be in the book. Okay, so here's your book. Your book's going to open this way, pages are going to flip this way. Okay, so the spine would be like this. You're going to pick it up, your left hand, hold it that way. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're actually going to peel back the adhesive just a tiny bit, and we're going to fold these down out of the way, and we are going to slide this in here, because remember, this is still open. We haven't actually closed this page yet. I'm going to slide it down in here. And we're going to line this up so that the edge of this page is at the edge of that adhesive. You don't want to go over the edge of the adhesive. When you get it where you want it, push it down. I'm going to turn this around just because it's going to be a little bit easier for me to work with this way. But we're going to make sure that the rest of that page lines up right on top of that adhesive. So you're going to pinch it down here. You're going to very slowly pull part of that adhesive, push the page down. Pull part of the adhesive, or all of the adhesive, and push the page down, okay? So now we're attached on the one side. We're going to come back this way. So we did do this right. Okay. So the way we put this on here, that flap that's going to hold this page closed is on the adhesive, which is perfect, which is the way we want it, because now we just come in on the back side here. You work craft knife, poke, you know, the little poker tool thing, that little tonic one in there. Release that adhesive. You're going to pull it out, push that down, and then you've got your perfect gap on both sides of your hinge for your page. Now that those are down, I'm going to come in here, remove my adhesive to close off the actual top of the page. And there we go. We have our first page on our spine ready to go in the book. I'm going to put this back to the side. Okay, and we're going to move on to the next page. So we're going to grab another one of these. Where is it? There it is. Okay, move on to page 2. Okay, fold that over so we've got it laying down facing us the way it's actually going to go in the book. So the front of page 2 just has the little side pocket. I already know how to do this, so we're going to, okay. I'm going to get that backing off there. We're going to fold our flaps for our pocket over. Pull our backing off. We're going to line this up again right to the edge. Push it down, push it down. There's that page. On the back side of this page, we're actually not going to adhere this down yet, because what we have that goes in the middle of this next page is a flap that's going to open this way, but it's got quite a big border around it. So what we're actually going to do is leave this off for right now. I'm actually just going to paper clip it to the page itself, because we want to mat underneath it before we actually stick this down. Okay, so we're going to just clip that one on there. This page, however, is ready to go on our book. So we're going to do the exact same thing that we did before. I'm going to open that up. We're going to get this all situated down on here. I'm going to hold this up so hopefully you can kind of see better. Okay. So we're feeding this down over. We want it just at the edge of that adhesive. Okay. Okay. them down. And this time we didn't catch that little flap, which is fine, because really all we're going to do on here is just push it over, and we're just going to lay this down because it should lay down right exactly where we need it to. And this one, for some reason, is not quite. That's okay. So we're going to get this off of here. I'm going to tack that down, and I'll come back with something else to kind of get this rolled over, because that, for some reason, isn't lining up quite right, but that's okay. All right. So we have our second page in here. Okay. Move on to page 3. Wherever I put my page bases. Keep losing them over here. Okay, so page 3 has the waterfall. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, excuse me. Okay, so for page 3, we're going to have our waterfall on the front, and then there's nothing on the back. So we're going to start with the waterfall. Actually, I'm going to flip both of these over. So the waterfall actually goes on a belly band that is then going to go on the front of that page. So we're going to start and what we want to do is get this about 1/8 of an inch, and I'm working upside down here. So we want to get this about 1/8 of an inch from the top. Make sure it's lined up side to side, and pull that off. And you're going to do the same thing with the next one. You're going to push that right up against the bottom of the one before it and push it down. All right, and we're going to put that on the front of our page. I'm actually going to start from the bottom, and I'm actually going to keep this paper clip so that it stays closed. All right, so I'm just going to center this on the bottom. And then stick it down on the top. And there you go. All right, so we're going to attach this page just like we attached the other pages. So I'm going to start my adhesive right there. Okay. Flip it over this way. I was thinking I did something wrong there. Get that one down. Oh, oops, don't do that. throwing away the wrong thing here. Okay, and then get up here on our all right, there's page 3. Okay, so page 4 has 2 elements. We've got a small flap that goes on the back page, and then we've got our big diagonal fold out. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna start all of these are gonna go around this little 6x6 square to build this thing, and then this whole thing will go onto this page. Okay, what I'm going to start with is we're not going to fold anything yet. We're not going to fold anything on the score lines yet. We're going to wait till we get this thing assembled. So basically, you want this to go right up to the 1/2 inch score line. Okay. All right. The next thing you want to pay attention to, and assuming you have done all of your pieces, so you've got your diagonal score line, so that, and then your little tab to attach this to this base piece, all going the same direction, this will work just fine without you really having to think too much about it. The reason we want all of those going in the same direction as it goes around is when it folds open and shut, it lines up better when you're opening and closing it. Of course I put it on the wrong side because of course I did. So let's put this one this way and line this up again. All right. Other direction. Okay. Same thing again. We're lining this up to that score line. Okay, and then one more time. Okay, so now you can pull these basically back against that base, and it should fold on the score line that's up against the base itself, and then it should fold also on that line that's 1/8 of an inch above. Okay. Okay, then you can go ahead and fold all your diagonals. Now, assuming you've gotten this on here, you're going to basically have this pinwheel effect. So then you just need to decide which way you want it to fold and sit on your page. Okay, which really, you know, it's however you want it to fold. I have mine folding so it opens up first and then out. You could do it the other way. Either way is fine. But we're not actually going to put this on here yet. We're going to actually get our flap on the back side of this page attached. And then we're going to put this page in the book, and then we're going to attach our big diagonal element. So I'm just getting this in here, centered up with the edge on the back side of that page. And we're going to go on this side. And I'm actually going to start on the back side of this one instead of the front. Okay, we're going to get this page down on here. Maybe. When you get on the last one, it is a little bit harder to work with, but all my top's on. It's my side here that's not cooperating. There we go. Oh, son of a... There we go. Okay. All right, and then we're going to close this up. And then this one, I'm actually going to take a couple of paper clips here. And just get this so that it's not going to flip open where we're trying to get it down. So I am going to go with my big adhesive. Maybe I am. Close enough. We can trim that up now that we've got it. Actually. All right. So, do that, and then I'm going to supplement this with a couple of the 1/2-inch pieces. All right, and we're going to get this down on here. So there's a couple ways we can do this, because of course if you wanted to glue this, you could. I decided not to glue it because I like to make things hard for myself. No. You could glue it if you wanted to, just knowing that you're going to have to then set this whole thing aside for, 10 or 15 minutes to make sure it's completely dry before you start messing with this to get this into the base of the book. You could run glue all over the back of this, even with the score tape on here, to kind of give it a little bit of wiggle room. I'm not even going to do that because this is going to go on here. You're going to have about 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Once you get it on there, then we're going to come in here, open it up, and just go over it with our bone folder and burnish that down and make sure everything's good and stuck down. Okay? All right, so I'm going to clip this one again. I don't know why I unclipped. Well, yeah, I had to unclip it to get it. All right. That will kind of hold it where it needs to be. All right, we're going to bring our book back in. Make sure everything is sitting right. And then we are going to mount this down onto the hinge. I'm sorry, not the hinge, the spine. One of these days, I promise I'll actually say the right things when I mean them. Okay, so because this is 6 1/4 high and our gusset hider was 6 1/4 high, you literally can go top to bottom and you'll be fine. So line this up at the bottom, and then all you need to really kind of look at to make sure you're getting it right is going to be your side to side. And if it helps you to do this with it at the top, so that I'm basically looking at it upside down, I think that's probably how I'm going to do it. So I've got this stuck down up here. I want to make sure good and straight down here. I am. So I'm just going to apply pressure on the end here. And then once again, we're just going to work those the tape backing out from under there. All right, so that's down. I'm just going to take my bone folder and come in here and burnish in the gussets. And there we go. Our base for our book is complete. And I actually, last night when I was working on this, didn't realize that the battery on my phone had died and I only had about 2 pages worth of this recorded. So this is actually number 2. Here is number 1. And I've gone through here and I've written all of the mat sizes so that when we get ready to start working on pattern paper here in just a minute, I've got all of my mat sizes written down in here. We'll go through those here in just a minute, but I'm going to figure out which paper I'm using for sure on this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I think I'm going to use this Jungle Safari from Echo Park. This one is a little bit older, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I had it in my stash, so I think this is the one we're going to use because I actually have an ephemera pack for this one. So, start out, I'm going to open up the ephemera and get those kind of sorted out, see what we've got. And I like to do this because then I can, oh, see that, like, see that's a frame, that one's cute. I like to do it this way because then I can kind of see what my bigger elements are, you know, kind of have those in mind to use other places. I can see what I've got as far as, you know, small ones like this little tiny tag, you know, which ones I could use somewhere as a journaling spot. So like that is a tag, I will use that somewhere as a tag. probably in one of the pockets in that front cover. But, you know, I've got like these cute little, if I can get a hold of anything, I'm desperately needing to go get my nails done. They're too long. You know, these adorable little flags right here. Cute alligator. Some really cute little pieces in here. So, I've got those kind of sorted out. I'm just going to put those off to the side where I can see them. In the paper pack, because this is one of the older ones, I've pulled out my cut aparts. So I've got some 4x6, some 3x4, and then some really wide borders, which are going to come in handy here in just a minute. And of course, they'll have really good prints on the back that probably aren't going to get used, which is too bad. I'm going to set those aside. And since this is an older one, it actually came with 2 sticker sheets, one with letters and numbers and things, and then one with just little elements. So I'm going to set those aside as well. And just take a look at the paper we've got here. I love this. I just can't decide if it's going to, if I can cut it in such a way that I can use it on the front and get the most out of it. You have to look at that. Excuse me. So, oh, this is a cute one with all the animals. And some flowers with some polka dots, and then some fun little stripes with more polka dots. And the big leaves. And the little birds. I love the birds. With some stripes, little jeeps with animals, and then a nice plaid with some more leaves on the back. So I'm going to sit and kind of go through this and figure out what's going where and get my mats cut, and then I will come back and we will talk about mat sizes and start getting this thing decorated. Okay, let's start matting. I'm actually going to start with our inserts. Your inserts are 6x6. So what I have done, I have supplemented the paper pack with just some solid cardstock, which, ooh, I hate when that happens. This is actually Doodlebug solid cardstock in, what colors have I got here? Pumpkin, Ladybug, Sunshine, and Sweet Pea. These are actually the same solids that I used on my other album, so this was kind of nice that they actually matched on this too. So what I'm doing on the inserts is, on each side they're getting a 5 3/4 by 3 3/4 photo mat, and then a 5 3/4 by 1 7/8 solid cardstock. So you could journal on here, really, you know, whatever you wanted to use that for. So the way I'm matting these is, one, the picture is going to run horizontally. The other side, it's going to run vertically. Gosh, if I could like hang on. And so, of course, we're going to run out of tape right now. Yay! So what I have done is, we have basically used every piece in that 12 by 12 paper pack. I'm left with about this much, and then some other like small pieces. This is about all I've got left of the paper pack. I probably, on some of these, the pages in here where I have used the solid cardstock, probably I could have used some more of the 12 by 12 patterned, but this one does not take a ton of paper. So really, if you've got, you know, a 12 by 12 paper collection, and keep in mind too, that's without really using the 2 sheets of the cut aparts and then the 1 border sheet. So really 9 sheets of pattern paper. Really, it's not too bad. It's not one that, you know, you need a ton of paper to do this album, which is nice. Not that I mind ones where I use tons of paper, because quite honestly, the next 2 projects I have planned are going to use a ton of paper. But I try to keep it right around 2 paper packs at the most, and then, you know, maybe some solids, or if there's, like with Doodlebug, you know, they have their petite prints that are a good they've got their petite prints that are always a good way to stretch the pattern paper. You know, Echo Park, actually, with the newer one that I'm getting ready to use for another project, and Cartabella, which, you know, same company, but you know, they've started coming out with these supplemental, like, solids packs, which is kind of handy, actually. I haven't used one of them yet. I will be using one of those for the first time with my other album I'm getting ready to do. And I just did that exactly like I did not tell you to do. Okay, so here we've got 1 insert. I'm actually going to set the rest of these aside because all of them are basically the same thing. So as I was saying, the inserts are 6 by 6. You're going to mat them. And of course you can change this up however you want to. You know, don't by any means stick with the exact same thing. It's entirely up to you. You do what you think looks good. But the way I'm matting these is with a 3 3/4 by 5 3/4 mat, and then a 5 3/4 by 1 7/8 inch solid piece. Okay, so for the actual book itself, what I have done, and I actually just went through and like clipped all of these on here, so they're all cut. So for the front and the back of the book, it's going to be 6 1/4 by 6 3/8. So 6 1/4 by 6 3/8. This one is actually going to go on the back of this one. And what I did with this is I cut this to the 6 1/4 high, and then the 6 3/8 wide, and then I took this other half of that 6 3/8, what was left, so that would be what? 5 5/8? Yeah, about that. So as you'll see, it's shorter here. What I'm going to do is supplement that with one of the borders. And this one isn't quite 6 1/4, which is fine, because when I come back and decorate this, I'm actually going to cover it up on the bottom here, which maybe I'll do it this way. Actually, I think I'm going to put this out towards this end. I'll put something over here to cover up where this doesn't totally cover that. Or really, if you got that centered on here and centered this between, that would actually be okay too. And I think that's how I'm actually going to end up doing it. Okay, the spine is going to be 6 1/4 by 1 3/4. So I can either do my little polka dots, which I actually kind of like better than the stripes. I think that's the way I'm going to put this one on here. And one thing to do if you don't have a ton of paper, or you're trying to really stretch a paper pack, one thing that I like to do in that case is I don't necessarily go through, okay, page 1, page 2, page 3, blah, 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 and go through and mat them that way. What I'll do is I'll go through the papers and I'll go, okay, you know, for example, not that there's much of this left. This was the page that kind of had that whole little jungle feel to it. I'm trying to find where my other part of it is because I know it's here somewhere. This one that had like the little huts and then the animals and whatnot. What I did with that is I kind of went, okay, I want to keep this one mostly intact. So where are big mats that I can use this for? And I cut those first and you know, kind of set those in the book approximately where they're going to go. Then I took like this one that had all the animals and the little safari people and the vehicles and whatnot on it. And, you know, did the same thing with that one. Okay, where do I want this to, you know, go within the book? And so on and so forth, so that you're starting with your bigger pieces first and working down to your smaller pieces. Okay. That's just the way I do it. You don't have to do it that way. Of course, if you have a way that works for you, then by all means, go for it. You know, it's really just up to you what look you want, how you want to put it together. You know, because that's the nice thing about paper crafting is there's really not a wrong way to do it. So, okay, we've got the outside of the book matted. I'm going to move on to the inside. I'm actually going to flip this up. Okay, so these mats are 6 by 6. And really on this bottom one, I could have gone 6 by 6 1/4. I chose not to because this flap is actually going to come down over that, and I didn't want, you know, just like this little, you know, sliver of it peeking out on the side there. So let's get that down. And there are a lot of 6 by 6 mats in this, which, you know, makes it really easy to cut your paper. And it also keeps you from having to, and I do this all the time when I make bigger albums and end up just irritating myself beyond all reason, even though I'm the one designing it and doing it to myself. You know, when I have the majority of my mats are, you know, like 7 by 9 or something like that, where you're left with like these little strips of paper after the fact. And I do that to myself all the time, and I just irritate myself with it every single time I do it. Okay, so for the matting on the pockets, I actually did use the border strips on this. So the matting is, and since these are pockets, if you go a little bit bigger, that's fine. If you want to go a little bit smaller, that's fine as well. As far as on height, width-wise, they need to be 6 inches. Okay, this top one is 6 by 2, 6 by 1 1/4, 6 by 1 1/4, and then 6 by 2 1/4. So I was able to cut the border strips just about perfect. Do I want to turn that one over? Do I care if those leaves are there? Yeah, I need those leaves to kind of break that up, because you're going to kind of tuck that down in there. And if you don't want to tuck that down in there, you don't have to. In fact, let me stick this one down and I'll show you on my other one. So on this one, actually, what I did, I'll lay those over. What I did here is, this was actually just a little strip of the green that I actually left 1/8 of an inch border all the way around. You can absolutely do that. This, excuse me. This one, I wanted those animals on that border. So, you know, this one does tuck down in a little bit. Same thing with the little wood print on that one. But you don't have to have that mat for those pockets actually slide down in here. You could trim it so that you've got a border all the way around. It's entirely up to you. You know, whatever you think looks good. Okay, so that one was 6 inches by 2 inches. The next two are 6 inches by 1 1/4. And that, of course, is if you're going to have that paper slide down in there just a tiny bit. And then, you know, the other thing too, I'm going to give you the measurements, of course, for the mats. Just because, you know, not everybody's scoreboards work the same. Not everybody's paper trimmers work the same. You know, one thing I always do, like when I use tutorials that are done by other people, you know, I'll follow their directions exactly to actually build the base of the book. When it comes to matting, I do go through, you know, and I'll write down what they think, what they said the matting should be, and then I always double check and adjust it, you know, however it needs adjusted. And basically when you are, if you're going to do that, you're going to, of course, measure how wide is the spot, how wide and how tall the spot the mat needs to go in. So in this case, we're 6 1/4 by 2 1/2. Okay. If you want an 1/8 inch border all the way around, you're going to deduct 1/4 inch off of the height and off of the width. If you wanted your border bigger, if you wanted your border smaller, you would adjust accordingly. So say you wanted, you know, a fatter, like, you know, 1/4 inch border, you know, you would deduct 1/2 inch off that measurement and you would get that bigger border around there. And once again, it's entirely up to you. You know, if you didn't want a border at all and you wanted to mat this exactly as, you know, the page itself is, you can absolutely do that. It's entirely up to you. You know, and I think that's where some people kind of get caught up, like when they're watching tutorials and whatnot, is, you know, trying to make something exactly like the tutorial they're watching. And, you know, honestly, I make the tutorials for people because it's fun and I hope it's informative for you guys. But you know what? If you want to look at this and go, oh, I like this, but I want to change this, this, and this, by all means, go for it. That's what makes this fun. It's so easy to take something like this, even from a tutorial, and just make it your own. Okay. Sorry, I needed a drink there. You know, and don't be afraid. You know, I sat across from a lady at a crop. Oh, so there is a magnet on this page. I think that it was in the part I recorded last night before the camera shut off on me. I was at a crop seated across from a lady that, you know, has been scrapbooking for years, but primarily does, you know, buys page kits and puts them together. And she's like, well, I just don't know how to match patterns and I just don't know how to, you know, make stuff look right. And what I told her, okay, so the base mat underneath these flaps is 6 by 6. What I told her was, you know, if you've been doing page kits that other people have designed for years, whether you realize it or not, you've learned something. You've learned about shapes and you've learned about, you know, colors and patterns and you know, even if you don't realize it, you have learned something. And you just need to, you know, take that leap. Go for it. I think that's how I was doing that one. No, I was not using the blue. I know that much. Maybe it's just, sorry, trying to figure out how I was doing this one. Okay, so this is 4 by 4 matting on these, so you need 8 4 by 4 squares. But you know, I just told her, I'm like, you know, you may think you don't know how to do it, but you know, whether you realize it or not, you've learned something from all these years of doing page kits and things other people have designed. You know, and I mean, even if it's a matter of taking something like that, which, you know, with tutorials, that's a lot of what it is. Yeah, that's how I was doing it. You know, you're basically taking somebody else's thing and you're following it step by step. And with tutorials like this, you know, the chances of you having this exact paper collection, because this is an older one out of my stash, you know, the chances of that happening aren't great. And that's fine. You know, find a paper collection that works. But the other thing I told her, I said, you know, the best thing you can do when you're trying to figure out how to work, you know, match different patterns and colors and whatnot, I said, is buy a paper collection. Like, buy the whole thing in its little packet, because everything that's in there will work together in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, and if it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal. It's paper. Okay, that was how I was doing that one. And I was doing birdie, that's what I was doing. Okay. I had this figured out like 20 minutes ago, and then I had to go up and get dinner started, so you know how that works. Okay. And really, this one, overall, to put the base, to build this base from scratch and get the entire base of the album done, this one's maybe an hour, hour and a half. So this is actually a very, very quick, very simple album to do. And I know if you're like me, it's always the matting and the decorating that seems to take forever, because, you know, you're trying different papers and, you know, so on and so forth. And we all know how that goes. So this one overall, though, is actually a very simple one to make and to put together. So shouldn't take you too long. And I've been trying to do some that are more simple and not my typical, you know, oh, hey, here's this shaped album that you need 750 steps to do. Because I know I'm really bad about doing that. Okay, the inside of this flap and the top part of this flap is 6x6, so you need 3 6x6 mats for the back side of page 2. Because I know that's probably my biggest downfall, is I tend to get into things and make them really, really complicated when I don't really mean to. Because I just will be like, oh, you know, I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, and next thing you know, it's, you know, 12 sheets of chipboard, and no, not that many. But yeah, you know, some of my stuff can get a little overly complicated sometimes, and I apologize, but that's just how I do this. I can't help it. Alright, so this little flap is going to be 5.5 by 5 3/4. Okay, so on this side, the front of the pocket is 2 5/8 by 6 inches. The inside, I wrote 6 by 6, but I think I actually cut this 6 by 5.5, so it'll slip down in here once we get adhesive on it. More tape for that tape gun too. And this one, actually picking out the paper for the mats on this one actually went really fast because the paper is so stinking cute. Okay, so this page is the one that we have the little 5.5 by 5.5 flap that sits in the center that I said not to glue down yet because we need to mat it underneath. So because it's going underneath, I am doing this in a nice solid cardstock. And this one is 6 by 6 again. Okay, and then we can put this little flap on here, which this one I actually think I'm just going to use a little bit of score tape on this one just because it is sitting on top of there. And close enough. Okay, so this you need 3 5 1/4 by 5 1/4 mats. So I am doing these cute little animals on the front. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! Which, did I have something that said that? Somewhere else. I thought I did. I know that says that on one of the cut aparts. Oh no, it's on this one. Here we go. Actually, it's on that. So I may end up putting that on there just like that because that would be cute. Okay, so we open it up. I'm actually using the other side of the cute lion and tiger and bear paper with little jeeps on it. And then another solid that complements it. All right. So for our waterfall, for the mat that slides underneath the belly band that the waterfall sits on, you need a 6 by 6. That under there, get it lined up, press it down. Okay, so for the waterfall, we need 4 by 4 again. So this was actually one of the 4 by 6 cut aparts that I just measured down and cut 1 inch off of each side. And then solid on the back. And the waterfall was actually one of the last things I matted before other than, the very last thing I matted, of course, was the inserts, which, since we do have the one done for the most part, there it is. So the inserts are going to slide in just like so. There you go. Yeah, the very last thing I matted were the inserts because I figured I may end up piecing them and actually had enough paper that it was okay. I have pieced inserts before, and honestly, it looks really cute. It does give it very much a scrapbook feel, more so, you know, than you get just from, you know, the typical matting and whatnot that we do. So, you know, that's always a thought if you think you're running out on paper, running low on paper. All right, so on this one, I have one of the 3x4 cut aparts, and I'm actually going to mat this. This is one of the border strips that I cut down to 4 inches and then cut in half. And so I'm going to actually the times I should use glue, huh? I'm actually going to put these on the sides, get those lined up. All right, and then we're going to put this down in the middle, just because it was cute. And I thought that would be kind of nice. All right. As far as pattern, or I'm sorry, solid cardstock, I think I used 4 sheets, maybe 5 sheets. I think I used 2 of the green and then 1 of the rest. And that's another thing too. When I'm buying paper collections anymore, since almost all of them now have the cut aparts, what I have been doing here recently with that is I've actually been, I'll buy the paper collection, you know, as it's packaged like this, and then I usually will buy individual sheets of the cut aparts so that I have them to use as cut aparts, and then I can still use that back side of them, you know, the whatever pattern is on the back, I can still use that somewhere else, and I don't have to worry about, you know, not being able to use the cut aparts. Okay, so the back side of this is just this plain one, and it is 6x6 mat. Slightly crooked, but that's okay. We're going to come back to the diagonal. We're going to skip ahead to the rest of the book, and we'll come back to the diagonal because I do still need to cut something on that, and I wanted to wait and show you. So on the back of the 4th page where we've got the small flap, we have another 6x6. And then the small flap is 5.5 by 4. So I have a solid that I'm going to put on the back. Okay. And then that's my one for the front. Son and I may have to go to the zoo this weekend so we can get some pictures to put in this album. Because I'm really liking how this is coming out. And you know, If you followed me for any length of time, you know I never end up actually putting pictures in the albums. It just doesn't happen. Okay, so the top flap on the back is going to be a 6x6 mat on each side. And this is where, too, if you wanted to, you could do this like I'm doing the inserts where you're doing a small piece supplemented by, you know, like part, you know, with like a solid stripe and then, you know, a big a photo mat or something. It's entirely up to you. I've done that before. Just, you know, it depends on the paper collection. It depends on, you know, how it's all coming together. And that sort of thing. Ah, there's my lions, tigers, and bears. Okay, so what I am doing here, so this is the small flap for the back, and this is 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. So what I've got here is I'm going to put down this solid mat. Okay, and then I'm actually going to put this on top, but I'm kind of thinking I almost want to mat this on black. There's a scrap over here. So what would that end up looking like? Ooh, that would look nice. Let's do that. All right. So I know this is 4x6. What the hell does it think it's doing? Sorry. My computer was freaking out there because I put something down on the edge of the keyboard. Okay, so I'm actually going to take 1/8 of an inch off of this 4x6 cut apart. And I'm actually, so that I get it even, I'm doing a 1/16 of an inch off of each side, and then I'll do the same thing on, actually I think I already cut this one down, didn't I? Just a little bit, didn't I? Shouldn't have done that. Fixed. Okay, and then we're going to do 6 inches by 4 inches. Okay, so we're going to mat this on here. So it's got just a tiny, tiny border around it. And then I'm going to take 1/4 inch score tape. And I'm going to put some along the top and some along the bottom. So we're adding just a little belly band to this because it kind of worked out. All right. All right, so now I've got a little belly band there that was unexpected, so that's kind of cool. All right, so like I said, 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. Another solid mat on the back of this one. All right, so this mat is going to be 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. That one wasn't quite long enough. So I'm actually supplementing it with one of the border strips. Actually, it's okay. It really doesn't need the border strip, does it? So really, I could put the border strip yeah, I think it's actually okay. All right, I think I'm actually going to put this on here. So I need to trim a little bit off of that. At some point, I promise I'll really quit knocking this thing over. I say that, but... And I've got like this little hot glue stand that my dad made that almost works as a stand for this that I've actually got on the desk. I should be using it. All right, so let's go back to this diagonal page. So for this, you need 8 pieces that are 5 3/4 by 5 3/4, okay, that you're going to cut diagonally. There are magnets on here so that it will hold these pages closed. So it's whichever, you know, you put them on there. However, if you want it to open to the sides first, you of course would put them on, you know, so it would close up that way. It's entirely up to you. So on the inside is another 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Okay. So what I'm going to do here, let me find the one I'm looking for. Okay, so fold this all back up again. What you're going to do is you're going to have your 5 3/4 by 5 3/4 piece. You're going to put it in your paper trimmer so that the corners, top and bottom, so top right, bottom left, unless you've got a pattern, depending on, and of course that depends on how you have your flaps going. So in this case, top right, bottom left. I'm going to line these up and line those corners up so that when you cut, you're cutting right down through there. And then you have your pieces to mat on here. So I'm going to put these 2 down since I know exactly where I wanted them. So that I don't get sidetracked or something and lose them. Or flip them over the wrong way or something, because I will be really irritated with myself if I do that. All right. All right. So then we just need to go through here and figure out. Oh, this was my one for inside. I knew I had another one in here. So this is my one that's going on the inside. This one does not get cut diagonally. It just goes down just like that. Sorry, I have a really dry throat today. All right, so I've got all of these pieces that need to be cut diagonally. And this is partially why I'm using some of the solid cardstock. Couple of reasons. If your paper is really truly directional like this. So there's clearly a top and a bottom. It's not something like this one where you can turn it any which way and it's not going to matter. That's where when you're doing some, you know, different kind of fold like this, that's how you get around having, you know, making sure that your paper is all oriented right so that you're not, you know, wasting a ton of paper trying to get it all oriented right. And two, that's going to be a whole lot of pattern all together in one place. So by putting in the solids, we are kind of helping to break up all of that color. Okay. So how was I going to do this? Was I doing the red on the inside or the orange? That's a very good question. I don't know. That's okay. We're going to go ahead and finish trimming the rest of these, and then we can kind of open this up and lay them out and figure out where everything is going to go. And fortunately, since these really aren't directional, yeah, that one kind of is because the flower's right there, but that's okay. We can work with it and we will figure out a way around it and it will be fine. And it's got, you know, a nice non-directional on the back. So if all else fails, we can always flip one over and it's not going to make any difference. It'll be fine. All right. So I know these, we're going with these because it picks up the red that's in there. So I'm thinking the orange we're going on the inside because then it picks up the orange on those flowers. And then my green is going, let's do it that way. And then I'm actually going to flip these over. Oh yeah, that's good. Just like that. Perfect. Okay, so that's how we're going to put those in there. Let's go ahead and get those down. So in case, you know, you were unaware, my craft room is done. I am working in the new craft room. Yay! And I'm just amazed that I have all this desk space now. And I'm literally still like cramming everything into the same like 3-foot section. I don't know if it's just habit at this point, probably, because I haven't had decent workspace in so long. That, you know, it's just habit that I have everything kind of just together. But you know, I went upstairs to start dinner and I came back down and I'm like looking at the abject disaster I've got going on down here right now because it is a straight up mess right now. And I was like, huh, interesting. All this space, yet it's just a mess. But that's okay. Because I will clean it up. Because I've made myself start like cleaning up everything, like doing a complete reset between every project, because otherwise it just gets to be an absolutely overwhelming mess down here. Just in general. I mean, you know, what was it, before Christmas sometime? I had something I needed to work on and I'd had, you know, 2 or 3 other projects started that hadn't gotten finished, and literally had like 2 piles of stuff that made up these like 3 or 4 projects that I literally had been moving from surface to surface to surface for months. And I finally went, okay, this is stupid. I have got to put these away. I kid you not, it took me 2.5 hours to sort through it all and find it all a home. And I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this. And that was before, you know, we even had, you know, started talking about actually starting on my room, which I just have to say again, my husband is amazing. He did this room from scratch in 5 weeks. And when I say 5 weeks, I mean, we're talking primarily weekends. I think he came down here on weeknights maybe 3 times. I know when he was doing drywall and he was doing, you know, all the mudding and the taping and whatnot, he came down a couple of times for that. And he came down, I know he painted on a weeknight one night, just so it could dry overnight and whatnot. But literally, actually, yeah, he did all of this pretty much on the weekends, which, you know, he had to do framing. The only thing down here he didn't do was the HVAC stuff. That I did actually have a guy come in and do that because, as he put it, he goes, I probably could do it, but somebody else that knows what they're doing can do it faster. I said, okay, fair enough. Makes sense. We will do it that way. But yeah, I mean, he's just amazing. I just gotta say that. Anyway. And, you know, too, I mean, this is, you know, I know I'm incredibly fortunate to be able to have an entire gigantic room all to myself to do this in. And believe me, I appreciate that fact because I know not everybody gets to do that. But, you know, I've said this was essentially like the culmination of, you know, all those years of being a military spouse, and every time we moved, my craft room would get smaller and smaller every single time. And, you know, this, you know, it worked out. Things are better this way. And of course I used the wrong ones, but that's okay. So those are going to be a little bit wonky, but honestly, it's not noticeable. Had I not told you, you probably wouldn't know. Okay. Alright, so that one is completely done. Just need to do the other side of this one. Since it will be in like this, I want that like that. Yes, I do. So I actually have one extra square that we cut down. That's fine. All right. Okay. Let's get that folded where it goes. All right. So at this point, the book is matted. We just need to decorate. So I am going to get this decorated as much as I can before it's time to go feed my family dinner. It's cooking. It's just not done yet, thankfully. So I will leave this on for a few minutes and start decorating. Okay, so it's finished. So we have our jungle version. We have the original, which is the Adventure in the Woods version. And since I had the book done, I went ahead and did a third one since I, screwed that up, didn't record, rebuilt the book. And this is with the My Mind's Eye Gingham Farmhouse paper. And I kept this one fairly simple because there's not a whole lot as far as embellishments and ephemera and whatnot that go with this one. And they're very small paper packs. They're only 6 double-sided sheets of cardstock and a sticker sheet. I had 2 of those. Literally, this is all I have left. So, not too bad. There you go. Same album, 3 different patterns, and thanks for checking it out.